Hello, it's dark in here. There's not really anything I can do about it. I have so many lights on. You're just gonna have to look at Shadow Allison. So I read Constance Wu's memoir, and I came at it, I think, from a different place than a lot of readers because, like, I've seen a couple of her movies. I saw Crazy Rich Asians and I saw Hustlers. But I didn't read it because I was like, whoa, Constance Wu, I'm such a fan. I saw that she's from Richmond. I'm from Richmond. So I was like, oh, I didn't know she was from Richmond. I wonder how much she talks about that in her book, her memoir. So I read it. And I only say that because after the fact, I went and looked at reviews to see what people thought. And a lot of people were like, oh my God, like, as a fan of whatever, like, oh my God, calling all Crazy Rich Asians. Like, I don't know why I'm giving them that funny voice, but that's how I imagined it. So, yeah, nothing wrong with being a Constance Wu fan, though. But it was kind of funny because at the first, like, half, I'd say, of the book, I was just, like, really rocking with her. I was like, oh my God, this girl's so deep. Like, she so gets it. Like, and then by the second half of the book, I was like, oh my God, girl, what? So I'm going to read you some of the quotes that I really liked from her memoir first. And I listened to the audiobook, which I very much recommend because she reads it. And I think hearing her, like, emotion really adds to it a lot more than if I was reading it in my own, like, flat internal monologue voice. So my favorite quotes were, she says, like, I got into acting to be creative, not reactive. There will always be people who don't get it. You don't make art for them. And I put that in my Instagram story too, because I was like, yes, like, thinking about myself as an artist. Like, I just in the past, like, maybe 3 years decided I'm not going to make work reacting to, like, what sells well or what people tell me they like. I just want to make work for me because that's why I make art in the first place, because I want to feel creative. So I was like, yes, that resonates with me. She said, instead of forgiving people because they know not what they do, why can't we just tell them what they did? I was like, absolutely, we got to do that. We should educate people. She said, I'm reading off my phone here, no one heard my words, they only heard the tone. And I think I've experienced that a lot. I think that's something that is very relatable. Maybe more for, like, I don't like to exclude people, but for women and women of color, like, there's that perception of the angry black woman. Like, sometimes you're in a situation where you just feel so attacked and you cannot physically talk about it without getting emotional, and then people just write you off because they think that you couldn't possibly have that strong emotional reaction and be logical. I'm multifaceted. I can be both. She talks about romanticizing hardship as someone who grew up in Richmond suburbs. I was never, like, a kid living in Richmond, but I feel like that's something that, like, I did grow up in suburbs, and that's definitely something I see a lot. And I feel like that does track for Richmond's culture a little bit. Yeah, I think those were my favorites, and a lot of those were pretty early in the book because I do remember constantly going back to my notes app, like, ooh, write that down, write that down. Okay, so now I'm going to start drawing whilst I speak. I look like a hunchback a little bit. It's my hair. Okay, let me position. Okay. So, yeah, first half of the book, she does jump around a bit, like, from herself as an adult and childhood and back. And there were some stories that I was like, wow, I know exactly what kind of person you were. Like, and she's very, like, honest with, like, I'm trying to catch the light here. With her portrayal of herself, like, she doesn't always paint herself in the best light, which I respect. Like, there's some stories where she kind of talks about kind of bullying some people, and it would be really easy for her to leave that out, and she didn't. And I'm of two minds on that because on the one hand, I appreciate seeing like her growth and how she went from being that person who was like kind of the villain in someone's story to owning that she was the villain in someone's story, and you know what it looks like when you realize that about yourself and how she's trying to be better. But there were times where I felt like she didn't really change her behavior. Like I would see patterns repeat. Like, yeah, she kind of like was very dismissive of someone's feelings in her youth, and then it kind of happened again in stories she was telling with the way she treated people as an adult. And it just made me kind of think, you know, why does this keep happening? It made me just kind of feel like maybe she's still kind of learning how not to put herself first. It's weird because this is a real person I'm talking about. Like, she's out there living her life, and I don't know her, but she's also like put so much of herself into this memoir that it feels like I know her. Like sometimes I feel like it feels like I'm talking about a character in a book, but she's a real person. But I can only go with what she's given me, and what she's given me is that, you know, it seems like it takes her a lot to realize, like, to get past her own feelings, because she does talk about being like a very emotional person who like has big feelings that she can't always control. And it seems like sometimes those feelings are so big for her that she forgets that they also impact other people, and that she has the power to hurt other people with her words. And the book just kind of ends, I feel like, with her still on that journey. So it doesn't feel resolved. It doesn't feel like she's totally come away being like the person that she thinks she should be, or that you would want her to be after reading those stories. So, I mean, I guess that makes sense, because it's not like she's like 70. She's still pretty young. But it's just, sorry, it's just a little strange. Like, I feel like if I was one of those people that she talked about, like maybe bullying, or that she talked about hurting their feelings and how they reacted, I might feel like she was painting herself as like, yeah, I did this wrong thing, but aren't I amazing for realizing that it was wrong? Like, look at this journey that I've completed. Like, I don't know. Sometimes it comes off that way. Oh, so it's strange. Like, you know, like I said, at the first half of the book, I was really like, wow, this woman, like, has so much incredible insight. And then when I finished it, I was like, I don't know about her. Like, like I said, I went and read reviews after I finished it, and I found one that kind of completely reflected my feelings, where it was like, you know, kudos for the honesty. Like, thank you for showing us so much of yourself. It's not often you get to like read a book like this where it feels like they're giving you like every perspective, and they're not sugarcoating the things that they did. But sometimes it had kind of like pick me vibes, and it just, I think the person also said it ended on a sour note, where you just kind of feel like, oh. So yeah, I mean, I think there was a point where I like screamed at a decision she made. I cannot remember it now, but it was just something where I was like, seriously. So yeah, I really enjoyed reading it. I think I finished it really fast, and part of that was because it was an audiobook, but I just couldn't stop listening to it. It was really good. Her voice is lovely, and hearing, like, you hear her voice like kind of crack with emotion sometimes. I just feel like it's the best way to hear a memoir. Like, I said the same thing after listening to Michelle Obama read Becoming. It's just like, wow, like nothing compares. So yeah, I'm a shadow. This video is pretty much over. I recommend it, but yeah, definitely came away from it like, Constance. Interesting. Oh, I forgot to say, she does talk a lot about like having kind of a breakdown that had to do with like fresh off the boat. And I think that was a really big part of her life But I never watched the show and I didn't see the whole thing, but I guess she got like canceled on Twitter and she talks about that. And I mean, if you were moved by her being canceled on Twitter, I think it would be really satisfying to hear her address that. I didn't even know what happened, so I was just kind of like, oh, okay. But it was a big deal. So, yeah, because at one point I did go look for her on social media and she wasn't like there at all. And that's why. So, yeah, I liked it. I would recommend it. I'd recommend the audiobook. I think that's the best way. It's only like 7 hours, maybe. It's pretty short. Yeah, that's it.